We want to go to a very, very critical front in this same struggle of people standing up for their rights. And that is, our brothers and sisters, the workers in the fields, the people who are making it possible for us to eat every day, who, I think many of us have seen have been deeply, deeply targeted by these raids. And we are super, super honored to be joined here on the show by Teresa Romero, who is the president of the United Farm Workers, which is the oldest and largest labor union for farm workers in the United States. Teresa, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It is important that we magnify what is happening in the agricultural industry and how farm workers who put food on our table are the ones that are being targeted here in California.
No, absolutely. And maybe let's just start there. I mean, give us a sense of what workers in the fields. I mean, I think people have probably seen some of the videos of, ICE agents running into the fields, but give us a sense of what the day-to-day has been like in this crackdown for farm workers.
It has been very difficult. They are not criminals. They're people who work very hard to put food on our tables, like I just said, and they are family members. They are parents. They just want to live their life and continue working. And now they're terrified. I talked to farm workers who tell me that in his previous administration, the adults were the ones that would worry some about what could happen if they were detained by immigration. What happens now is they have to tell their children who are US citizens what they need to do if mom and dad don't come home. So I've spoken with 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and they tell me, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school because I don't know if mommy and daddy are going to be here when I get back. So it is creating pain for the workers. It is creating anxiety for the children and for the entire communities because just imagine, like you were saying earlier, they're afraid to go out. So that affects how they work. They cannot take their kids to the park. They cannot take the kids out to eat. They cannot go to school functions. So it's just damaging at every level.
I think a lot of Americans don't really understand the extremely important work that these farm workers are doing because, they don't see where food is growing. They don't see where food is being picked. I mean, in the US, you just kind of go to your local grocery store and it's just there. And you don't really think too much about how it got there, right? So I'm just curious before we kind of get into some of the ways that the Trump administration is terrorizing these workers, if you can explain the importance and what work we're talking about here, because without it, a lot would collapse in the US.
Absolutely. These immigrant workers with, according to the federal government, about 40, at least 40% are undocumented. The agricultural industry in this country would not exist. I have talked to some employers where they're telling me, especially smaller farms, they're telling me that if they take their workforce, they're going to go out of business. I want people to understand, and I hope people and consumers understand the human toil and suffering that this is creating. But if that's not something that gets to them, let me tell you what is going to happen. Right now, like you said, we go to the store, every type of food that we're looking for, we're going to find. There is going to be a time where we're going to go to the store. We're not going to have every type of food that we want, and it's going to be very expensive. And that's when people are going to say, this is not what I voted for, because they only react when it affects them directly. I want people to understand that it's a lot more than the price of food.
No, I think that's critically important. And I mean, it also goes to just the point that farm workers are already fighting so many different fights. I mean, heat, pesticides, housing, I mean, on medical care, I mean, on every level. And I mean, this is the work that you all do, day in and day out to organize farm workers. But I mean, it just feels like this is just such an extra, this sense of terror blanket being dropped on people who are already being, put in pretty difficult circumstances to make the food that we eat.
Farm workers, in the previous administration, Trump's administration during the pandemic, he deemed them essential workers. And they were working every day, and some of them paid with their lives. And he didn't mind whether they were documented or not. They were essential, they needed to be in the fields, they needed to work. But right now, they're still the same workforce. And what I hear from the workers is he says that we're essential, but he treats us as if we were disposable.
Mm.
No human being should feel like that. They contribute so much to not only putting food on our tables, our economy. Like you said, here in California, there are areas where the temperatures can get to 115, 120 degrees. They are working under those circumstances. They work when there are fires. They're, bending over on their knees. It's just a lot that they sacrifice. And they're professionals. A lot of people say, it's just labor work. It is not. They're professionals. They know what to do. They work in different crops, and I can guarantee you that we could not do it. We could not do it. And they're not going to find the workforce here to do this work. And fruits and vegetables are going to be rotting in the fields.
I'm curious, what kind of solidarity, if any, are you seeing from other labor movements or organizations, and also from the general public?
Oh, tremendous, tremendous. There's organizations. In March, on Cesar Chavez's anniversary of his passing, we had a march in Delano, and the we several unions came together, and the important thing was, on the theme was with these hands, because what we're saying, construction workers, hotel workers, with those hands, they serve us. They make our lives easier, better, and the support that we had not only from other labor organizations, from elected officials, from other nonprofits that care and worry and work for immigrants, the community, it was just something that it is, it has to continue. It has to continue. We could need to continue to bring awareness to what is happening to the people that service, to the people that, one of the couple of weeks ago, we had a rally in LA because David Huerta, a president of a SEIU local here in California, was arrested. And just for being there, for asking questions, and they immediately just pushed him. He fell back. I mean, just look what happened to Senator Alex Padilla. If that happens to the people who are prominent, just imagine what is happening to farm workers, to undocumented people. People say they're being detained. They're not being detained. They're being kidnapped. They don't have a search warrant. They don't have a name of a person that they're looking for because he or she has a criminal record. They don't have that. They're taking people that are working or people in the streets that are brown and deporting them.
No, I think that's such a good point, and on so many different levels. It just, I mean, it reminds me. I mean, one on the issue of them being professionals. You all have one of the greatest Twitter feeds showing how people actually really work. But one of the things I noticed yesterday is how, in some of the UFW contracts, maybe all of them, Juneteenth is a holiday for many of the workers, and workers
Yes.
expressing the importance of that. And it just reminds me seeing like the racial profiling on the streets, the racist criminalization of immigrants, that, this is like a social movement as much as a labor movement, because obviously this country wanted Black and brown people to come here and work for very little money and very poor conditions. And then now they want to crack down and say, oh, you all got to get out of here.
That's exactly what is happening. They want to, Trump run and campaign on deporting criminals. And um, the fact that he's going to places of work, to communities, to churches, to schools, these people are not criminals. Let me tell you what he can find the criminals. He can go to the prisons. Those people have been afforded their constitutional right of being charged, tried by a jury, found guilty, and sentenced. These people that are being kidnapped from work, from the streets, from schools, have not been afforded that constitutional right. We try to find out, when you see people in um, regular clothing with masks on, how do we know who these people are? How do we know that they're officers? It is very scary what is happening to our country. This is not who we are. And let me tell you something. What they're trying to do is intimidate us. And if we let them, they win and we lose. What they're trying to do is separate us. And if we let them, they win and we lose. What they're trying to do is distrust each other within our own communities. And if we let them, they win and we lose.
I'm curious if you can talk at all about the response in terms of, because when it comes to undocumented immigrants, they're a very vulnerable community because, oh, there goes my
Yes.
electricity, but it'll come back. When we talk about undocumented immigrants, they're a very vulnerable community because it's not like it's easy for somebody who does not have proper like citizenship status to go protest in the street, especially in this political climate when even without protesting, people are being kidnapped off the streets. So I guess my question is, how are people able to organize and fight back? And I think this is where it's really important for those who are documented, for those who do have citizenship status, to make sure that they get involved, because this is one of those moments where you actually have the ability to do things that these people who are being targeted cannot.
In the union, we say, do the right thing when nobody's looking. When we have these communities that are good, hardworking people that are being terrorized, like I keep telling people, they're not being arrested, they're being kidnapped, and and we need to step up and fight for them. I usually like farm workers to have their own voice and be the ones to speak up, but right now they can't. We would be putting them at risk. So all our communities, all of us who eat should be out there and supporting farm workers, supporting immigrant communities, and making sure that this changes, that this doesn't continue. I keep saying, if Trump is in charge, he could make that stop right now. But that's a big if, because he has surrounded himself with people that are anti-immigrant, that are very racist, and they are the ones that are making the decisions. So if he's in charge, we can stop this right now.
Well, Teresa, I want to ask you before we let you go if there are ways that people can support the work that you all are doing in the United Farm Workers.
Absolutely. We are an organization, a union that tries to get the funds. We're trying to create a group of attorneys that would be ready to help farm workers who are being detained. And donations are always welcome, because that's exactly what we need right now, to be able to have the capacity to protect people. They can go to ufw.org and they could make a donation there.
Well, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate you giving us some of your time. Teresa Romero, President of the United Farm Workers, thanks so much for being with us here on the show.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.